Okay, so this is how to source property like a pro, like we do as buyer's agents, because there is a very specific effort that we make to find the right property for you. So doing this yourself, if you employ what I'm about to share with you, it's going to create an army of personal shoppers. It's going to uncover opportunities that you simply wouldn't have otherwise. And you're going to learn about how important that little bit of a head start can actually be. Much more than it seems on paper, that's for sure. So let's get straight into it. Pretty simply, the three ways that we find property are in different arenas, I like to call them: on market, pre-market, and off market. On market is fairly obvious. That's your realestate.com listings, that's your domain listings, that's also agents' own websites as well. And there's varying costs associated with those. And why that's important is because sellers who have limited funds or are sold a cheap marketing package will end up primarily on agents' own websites or domain. Domain here on the sunny coast, an average $600-700. Realestate.com at last check, probably $3,500 on average. Like, there's a big difference. So make sure that you're using both. Also, there's different preferences in different states as well. It's actually interesting to look at the data. Domain's actually more popular south of the border than here in Queensland, where it's dominated by REA, so Real Estate Australia, which is a conglomerate. They've got a few different things. So that's why we call them REA. But yeah, realestate.com.au is what I'm referring to anytime I mention that. But yeah, the on markets are going to hang around in those three areas essentially. There's also other ways that we look, places like Facebook as well, surprisingly. And that's for FSBO stocks. So there's another acronym: for sale by owner, right? And it is a viable source of property, but we don't actively deal, well, we should say that ethically, we don't deal directly with sellers. And there's a couple of reasons for that. May as well mention them here. Selling agents, it's important for us to maintain good relationships for obvious reasons. And, if I want access to their stock, and it keeps them on side, otherwise it diminishes my ability to, if I cut them out of the picture, it diminishes my ability to service my clients moving forward, because they're less likely to show me off markets and pre-markets. It just damages the relationship, which is really, really important. The second thing is, it's actually in the seller's best interest. And I much prefer dealing with an owner and a seller through an agent, because I want them professionally represented, because it makes deals better, just like having us as buyer's agents in the picture as well, right? So they're the two main reasons why we kind of err to bring in a selling agent when we transact with for sale by owner stock. And it doesn't have to be a full-blown thing where, an agent comes in and then takes this property to market and all of a sudden you're in an auction campaign with everyone else. No, if we've got the right buyer, we'll plug in an agent. They can do a flat fee, fixed rate at, for 2 weeks, just to get them into that position, right? And to make sure that their best interests are being looked after. Otherwise, I feel a little bit selfish if I'm representing my buyer's best interest and innately exploiting the seller and the owner of that property. So that's where for sale by owner is a viable piece of stock, because we get calls all the time. Hey mate, I want to sell my house to you. Have you got anyone on the books? Because I don't want to use a real estate agent if I don't have to pay them. We can just do a deal, job done. So yeah, it is a viable source, and I do call that on market and categorize it as that, because they are marketing their property to me, and whether that's to anyone else or not. So that's on market, pretty self-explanatory, right? Pre-market's a little bit more interesting, but I love it. It's my favorite. And the reason is because it's this beautiful amalgamation of vendor and seller motivation and lack of competition. So oftentimes when we touch on off markets, you'll learn that perhaps they're not as attractive as they first seem because motivation can be waning and there can be a few other things that kind of, burst your bubble when you look a little bit deeper at some off markets. But pre-markets are great. They've got a motivation, a commitment to come to market, a commitment to sell the property. And what I get to do is expedite that process for them. So it's almost like I'm helping them as well, right? And so it's this beautiful coming together of the selling agent who's already appointed at this stage and myself and my buyer. So what I encourage you to do is get access to these through the relationships I'm going to teach you how to create with real estate agents, how to be remembered, how to be front of mind, how and when to approach them. We'll talk about. So with the pre-market stock, the type of access I get to these properties is through photo shoots is a big one. There's a lot of VIP events and things that happen around, like a pre-marketing campaign for an agent that they'll do to people already in their database, buyers left over from their last campaign, underbidders from the last auction they had, that sort of thing. So you can be there in a small group of company before it goes fully live. So yeah, it's a great opportunity. I'm a big fan of pre-market. Sometimes I'm stepping over the photographer, literally filming my own walkthrough for my clients just to get that head start. And again, we'll talk about why that's important a little later. Now, to define off-market. Off-market is, now we've sort of qualified the other two. It makes sense. It's everything else. Every other property that is available to purchase. It takes a few forms because you can knock on someone's door and find an off-market opportunity. It's not sitting there on someone's database going, if we find the right buyer, they'll sell it. This is literally introducing them to the concept of selling. And that can be really powerful as well. And we can talk about the immediacy and stuff and what that creates. But more often than not, agents will have a gamut of properties in an off-market bucket, right? A few off-markets they'll be managing at any one time. And there's a few reasons why people stay off-market. It's never the same reason twice. A lot of it is privacy. Some of it is ease of access. Like some of it's tenanted, makes it really tricky to get access to the property and run open homes, acreage, and if there's any open books, if there's any business running as a component of the property, or if they haven't found anything else. If that seller hasn't found anything else, they're nervous about coming to market. So the idea is if I've got clients that can give them what they need, which is, give them their money and give them what's called a rent back clause. We'll talk about how powerful that is in the levers conversation. It's a separate video. But if we can massage that into fruition, it's a really helpful arena to try and buy property. The reason I said it's a little bit weaker is that often, especially in a moving market that's either going up or down, sellers' expectations rarely align with the market straight off the bat. There needs to be an education process where they'll want a nice chunky figure and then the market will tell them where it sort of sits, which is often a smidge below that. Now, if we lack the ability to perform that market analysis or perform that education for these sellers, sometimes the off-market opportunities just simply aren't purchasable at a reasonable, fair price. Guys that are listening to this as opposed to to watching me, I've just realized I throw around a lot of air quotes, and that's going to be a little bit tricky to kind of get through context. But that's the three arenas in a nutshell by definition. And we can shop each of those differently and we tailor our approach. But the whole idea is find property in any arena that we can, through any means possible, and then throw it into our consideration bucket to be considered, how we actually go through these properties and tick some boxes and find out whether they're a viable purchase opportunity. That comes from selling factors, so the seller's circumstances, whether they're actually just doing this as an exercise because I twisted their arm to to show me through. Are they actually on their way somewhere? Are they moving on the property ladder? Motivation is a huge, huge component of viability to purchase. And again, if we know as much as we can before we get to the offer stage, it can be hugely powerful. Imagine getting the terms spot on, like we innately understand where they're at. Like that's a huge thing. And we'll talk in other videos about this as well, and learning as much as we can vicariously through the selling agent about the property and the owner's situation and circumstance and how powerful that can be in formulating offers. But no matter where we find these properties, it does go through that next part of the funnel, which is to assess that viability. If they do have a motivation and they are serious seller, there is an opportunity we can work with the right terms. Then we'll then go to the next due diligence phase, which is all of the reporting and the property specific parameters that we can then consider. Right? There's an order that we do things. There's no point in getting building and pest guys in there and a structural engineer for the dodgy retaining wall out the back and a pool guy to take a dive in there because it looks like the concrete shell might be cracked, and make sure the pest management's in place, and get a builder around to check whether that extension is doable. Talk to a town planner whether we can do that subdivision or build in underneath the house or put that granny flat in there, and what these easements are defined. That's a hell of a lot of effort. A hell of a lot of effort to go to if we find out down the track, doing it the other way around, that the seller doesn't have a real motivation to sell anyway, that they can't actually move, that its property isn't even in their freaking name, that whatever hurdles we find, like we've got to make sure that the seller's circumstances are washed, clean, understood, right? And then we can sort of break it down from there. So that's the next phase. So we've got seller motivation. We've sourced it through our various funnels. I'll talk about how we source as well, like the mechanics of it a little later as well. So that's the next phase of qualification, right? Is all the reporting. And this is where I'd like to plug in what I call the aces in their places, right? I feel like buyers don't leverage these guys as much as we should. And there's some of the professionals I just glossed over before, but having that building and pest guy, having a qualified tradesperson, having a town planner is awesome. Another wicked one that, again, is going to be really deep dived on the video about how to value a property, is an independent valuer. So we can, again, really quickly qualify whether the expectations of the seller are in line with my client's budget or where they see value. More importantly, I do like to disseminate between the two. Gee, it's involved, isn't it? There's so many themes that just interweave with each other about doing this properly. And it's not until I've sat down to really film this stuff that it's all kind of coming to a head and understanding how intricate it is to do well and to do properly, and how near impossible it is for a buyer to do this unless they're unemployed. They've got some skills in this sphere already, because it's a pretty tough industry. And the other thing is too, you're never evaluating just one property at once. There's always 4 or 5 that you're working through the considerations of, right, before it even becomes something that we start to emotionally talk about, which is further down the funnel. So bringing it back to what I was saying about the next phase of using all these professionals and these valuers is that we can get a proper picture of what the property's worth and start to then educate our seller as much as we can as well. So we're starting now to try and align wherever their motivations and expectations are and bring that in line with where we see value and where the market would see value should they take it to market, those sort of things. Valuers are quite pragmatic in that they look at, the value of the land versus, or plus the value of the dwelling, plus some location factors and some zoning things and some market factors, macro ones like scarcity and recent sales and all that sort of stuff, right? It doesn't necessarily build in the emotional aspect as much as what the perfect buyer could buy a character home for. Queenslanders are a big thing here, right? In Queensland, that's what everyone wants when they move into state. They want that quintessential Queensland lifestyle on a pineapple farm. But this is you're starting to now see how our sourcing is designed to move efficiently, because again, it's return on investment of time. We want as many properties to be qualified out ruthlessly as fast as possible. So our attention is only on the stuff that we know is viable. Then oftentimes, this is actually when it first hits my client's radar. A lot of this stuff I'll do behind the scenes because I'm conscious of my client's emotional bandwidth. That's really important to consider as well. I want them to be, you know what, guys, this is a qualified purchase opportunity. Now you can consider it. Does it work for you? Does it speak to you? Again, I like to phrase this, I say this a lot in my content, but I'm not an investor specialist. There's a whole bunch of buyer's agents who do that really well, who are mathematicians and accountants and financial planners and advisors, and they can really work with investors quite seamlessly. And a lot of it is yield, capital growth, return on investment. Like it's the numbers side. For me, I work predominantly with people moving here as a lifestyle change, or moving within the region up or down the property ladder. And when I say the property ladder, what I mean is, a young family, a growing family who needs more space, a retiree, an empty nester, moving back down the ladder into something smaller and more modest. That's, when you're in a lifestyle location typified by the Sunshine Coast, then the motivation has to be there. And this is why it's such a big factor. Because it's not in a city where you're just like, okay, cool, I'm in Melbourne or I'm in Sydney for work or I'm moving there. Like it's practical movement. We're not in, Mount Isa where it's a mining thing. It depends on whether a mine opens or shuts or booms or busts, and then your population just tracks and correlates so accurately with that microeconomy. So it's in a lifestyle arena. That's kind of, we need to qualify that motivation even more so, because so many people go, well, why am I leaving the Sunshine Coast? Like it'll hit them. Why am I moving? I've got it pretty sweet here. And by the way, someone wants to pay me good money for my house. So obviously it's worth something. Maybe I need to fall in love with it again. So that happens as well. Anyway, we move through the process. We move our clients down this funnel. And what I'm hoping you're doing is obviously drawing these parallels as I speak. And it gets to a point where it is time for what I call the lifestyle part of the funnel. The lifestyle part of the funnel is defined as, is it workable for you and your family? Is the floor plan actually functional? Do you get the indoor-outdoor flow so you can keep an eye on the kids in the pool while you're making lunch? Does it have a separate study wing because you've got a working from home setup or a business, or perhaps a studio that you need to create for your YouTube content? What's the actual setup of the home? Shedding's another big thing. Land profile. It's all well and good looking at something and go, holy hell, 1,000 square meters. That's exactly what we needed. That's not too much, not too little. Then you find out that half of it slopes away to nothing. It's a pole home. There's a big easement there, so you can't put the shed you wanted to on there anyway. And the bubbles burst. Or, it's even bigger and you've got protected vegetation where you've got to get an arborist's consultation and council approval to touch a tree. So this sort of stuff is built into this as effectively and efficiently as possible. And yes, there are fees associated with employing these professionals for what they do. But I think it's invaluable and it's such an easy shortcut, because immediacy is doing two things. So we're not spending time emotionally evaluating something that's not a viable purchase opportunity. And secondly, allowing us to move through our due diligence phase as fast as possible to clean up our offer. Now, that might sound like quite a meaty concept, but in essence, all we're trying to do is tick as many boxes as we can before we get to the offer stage, so that the offer itself and the contract itself has easier to understand terms, or less terms, or no terms, subject to building and pest and subject to your finance. You've got a kick-ass broker working away feverishly in the background that just, we can always get a sales contract and expedite him over there while we're working on the building and pest. And we can get a guy in before we even go under contract, and just like, imagine how powerful that is. Or, I want to get that pool checked or this checked. Oh, everyone's going to want to check that fence, mate. Like, no one's going to, and we're all going to have to do it independently. Like, the agent will tell 10 different buyers to go, okay, cool, we might have to just get a report on this. Well, he's going to do that. Do yours independently, get it across the line, and it means that your offer versus the next person is going to be clean. And the next person is your competition. The next person is that person who wants to steal your dream home from under you. We want to force their hand into a very uncomfortable position where they squirm a little bit and either withdraw, or they have to make a really subpar offer just to be in the mix. We're skipping around a lot talking about sourcing, but this is, it gives it context and why efficiency is key in this phase of buying property. Because if the agent can call buyer B and say, hey, look, buyer A's just put in their offer, they've done a lot of work behind the scenes, it's pretty clean, and buyer B has to go, holy crap, so we have to, okay, so look, we still need to do all those checks, but we'll get something to you subject to those checks today, so at least we can be considered. And then the agent goes around to the seller, slides 2 contracts across the table, both in a similar sort of price point. If buyer B was smart, he would have just pulled his price lever and just gone, here's a bit of an incentive to look at me over the guy who we just now learned has a cleaner contract than ours. All these little psychological things we can do. But that's in essence, I won't get off track too much, but that's in essence why efficient sourcing is so important. On market, off market, and pre-market in the middle. The next part of this conversation I really want to talk about is how we approach sourcing mechanically, like the steps, not necessarily to qualify a property once it's on our radar, but now to find and unearth those properties. Spoiler alert, it's through agents. Agents are your best freaking friend. They have the data. They know sellers. They know other buyers that need to sell. And they're proactive. Damn, they're proactive. You can get, if you do this right, you can get an army of personal shoppers. So I'll tell you how that works right now. On-market properties, once you've got your brief together and you're looking on realestate.com and Domain, you will see a whole series of properties that are being sold by the same 3 or 4 agents. They're your guys, they're your target. It's going to pay for you to, once you've got your brief dialed, approach these guys with a fair bit of energy and gusto. And I'll save the reasons why and the real psychology behind it for a video specifically on how to be remembered and how to do that well. But the name of the game for this purpose when you're getting started now in sourcing is inject as much energy as you can into these calls. They are important phone calls when you are making contact with these agents or when you're meeting them at an open home. You are assertive, you are decisive, you are a buyer they want to handhold. Mate, this is what we want. This is what we're after. We're savvy, we're prepared, and we've been in the market a little while. We know what we're looking at. You present us the right property, we're ready to go. That agent's like, hell yeah, I'm going to go back and I'm going to start matchmaking for you, mate. See who's in my database, see what else I got coming up. You're the buyer I can find a solution for. As opposed to, oh, mate, yeah, we're having to think about it. Yeah, we're still trying to narrow it down. We're here and then we're over there. And just like, mate, same happens with phone calls. This is why that advantage can be really key because it might only be 10 minutes ahead of when they were planning to call the next prospective buyer. But if you're convincing enough on the phone, they'll stop and they'll just be like, you know what, it's easier just dealing with Ash and his buyer in this case, or for you guys, dealing with you guys specifically before opening it up to anyone else. Oh, I've just found my buyer. This is perfect. I reckon this is going to tick the boxes. I'm not even going to bother wasting anyone else's time or my time as a selling agent, opening the door for 10 different buyers individually. It's just like, it's the best way to transact if you make their job easy. The reason why making these calls to agents assertively and with energy. Seriously, have a coffee before these guys are your army to uncover opportunities that other buyers won't access. If you get them G'd up, they'll get straight on their database and figure out what's coming up, make some calls themselves, go, I'm pumped. I just spoke to this buyer. They've pumped me up. I reckon we've got you your buyer. I know that you're still finishing off the deck and you haven't got your pool safety cert yet and blah, 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 but I reckon we get these guys around. They might even take it as it is. They seem really easygoing, but really ready to go. Oh, mate, okay, yeah, well, it doesn't sound like we want to miss these guys. Let's do it. You've just unlocked an opportunity that wasn't going to passively come to the market for another couple of months. This is why it's so powerful. It's the transfer. A very wise person told me once that sales is the transfer of urgency through energy. And it's never more true than when we're talking about a bunch of extroverts, which sales agents generally are, which means that they get their energy from external sources. They're not as intrinsically motivated by default, but they're externally motivated by their environment and by the energy they can absorb from other people around them. So play to their strengths. Get excited, get energetic, get clear on what you want, and get them after it. I do exactly the same for my clients. I know who to call and who the guys that are young and up and coming and hungry, they're actually going to go knock on doors. Just go, so you want north-facing 800 square metre block, 4 2 and 2 with the shed already on it. There's a street with like 4 or 5 of those properties. I haven't spoken to those guys for a while. I've done a letterbox drop and my last, you know what, Ash? I'm going to go and knock those doors for you. Just see. And they'll get to that doorstep and they'll knock on the door and go, mate, you wouldn't believe it. I have the perfect buyer for your property. And if you don't believe me, I can have them on your doorstep within 24 hours. It's a lot better than any other real estate agent when they go around and just go, hey, mate, you want to sell? Oh, mate, you got to be a buyer? Well, no, we have to market your property. So you can start to see what we do as buyers agents that goes above and beyond what you're able to do with the time that you've got to allocate to sourcing your property, let alone the amount of evaluation that goes on that we've touched on just briefly in this as well. So there's so much that goes into the sourcing effort. So it's EDMs, electronic direct mail, so emails to agents. It's social posts when we've got a following of these agents already that are active on these platforms. It's all these sort of things that you can easily emulate as well. Not as much just get followed by a bunch of agents, but more send an email to them with your brief, nice and succinctly, easy to digest, 10 seconds, matchmaking, cool. Actually, I'll look at my cookings list, my list of upcoming stock and see if I can find anything. Like that's what these agents will do. So I'd implore you to, the return on investment, energy-wise, more than time-wise, is going to empower personal shoppers. I like that term. I think it is. It's agents that will go out and proactively match you to a property. And you stay on top of these guys. You keep them in the loop. You rock up to all their other opens for their peripheral stuff. It's how to get remembered, which we'll talk about in another video. So for the purpose of this, I think that's probably enough. We know there are the 3 arenas: on market, pre-market, off market, how to find all of those. For you guys, it's going to be through agents specifically. And then we know about how to qualify it first. Motivation is going to be the biggest thing. Then we can go into the fundamentals of the structure and the grounds, the block, and any questions we have about development and stuff as well, because that can be important depending where you are. Rapidly changing zones here, for example, on the sunny coast. Block of land can increase 10x overnight if we know all of a sudden that's going to become a medium density and you're going to have a developer that'll just knock down the house and put 5 duplexes on you. You're out of the game. What the hell is the point of evaluating that property if you know that it's going to be opened up to developers, or even more so if the owner is savvy and privy to that information or has someone in his ear going, mate, hold on to this for another 6 months. You're wasting your time to even evaluate it because they're going to go, no, mate, I'm waiting for a golden handshake from the developer. It'd be nice to know now, I guess. If you're not privy to that information, you're wasting your time. You're going around all this work for mate, it'd be nice to get an offer, I guess. Really be strategic with where you're putting your time and your effort. So I think that's enough for this one. For more details, follow the other videos where, again, it is just a hell of a lot of crossover, but I do welcome any questions, calls, whatever my capacity to help buyers en masse is what I'm really going for here. And if I don't have the answer to questions, it's encouraging me to learn and then just share that newfound knowledge as well. It really is upskilling together as a cohort and realizing that, again, these selling agents are doing this day in, day out to sharpen their skills, not to actively exploit your lack of understanding and prowess in this arena, but passively doing it, absolutely. Oh, we'll have the answers for buyers, and they'll prescriptively give you scripts and dialogues, literally, to move you through a process to get to a desired result, which is to buy their property that they've listed. It's as simple as that. So the more we can do independently and don't rely on these agents to give us information prescriptively, we can be proactive in the questions that we ask. And I'll teach you, again, there's so many ways to do that, to get the answers we need. And it's not to beat them at their own game, it's just a step to them in a professional negotiation, a professional fact-finding mission to evaluate property, because it's a big purchase. And I say this at the end of most of my videos, but it is fucking expensive to get wrong. So the little bit of time investment now, bravo, this is freaking amazing. And I hope as many people listen to this and watch this as possible. But the next phase is really just seeing it as a strategy, as a spreadsheet you can map. I do. That's something I'll quickly touch on before I just wrap this one up. I use a project management tool called Asana for all my clients. And that is a client-facing dashboard, I call it, right? Created for these guys. And they can see properties, drag and drop, write some comments in, whatever, because we manage it as a project. We manage it properly. It's not just a WhatsApp chat. It's a proper methodical process. We eliminate things as we go. We dive deep where we need to. We append all the documentation and the video walkthroughs and everything I do there as well. So yeah, that should help you with the sourcing side. Look forward to seeing you pop onto some other videos in this series. And as always, buy better. Let's go.